You walk into the grocery store, head straight for the baking aisle, and pick up that golden, translucent jar of honey with the cute little cartoon bee on the front. You think you're making the healthy choice, right? You're cutting out refined white sugar, avoiding high fructose corn syrup, and trying to put something pure and natural into your family's morning oatmeal. But let me ask you a question that might make you freeze the next time you hold that squeezy bottle. When was the last time you opened a jar of supermarket honey and it actually smelled like a field of wildflowers? Or did it just smell like straight, metallic, one-dimensional sugar? Here is the brutal reality you aren't supposed to know. That sticky liquid you've been drizzling over your kids' pancakes might have never been inside a beehive. In fact, there is a massive systemic deception happening right on the shelves of your favorite local supermarket. And today, we are going to expose the whole dirty operation. By the time we finish this teardown, you'll find out exactly why your standard grocery store honey never crystallizes and stays unnaturally runny for years. I'll show you the corporate shell games used by famous heritage brands to hide cheap, industrialized imports behind rustic American imagery. We'll break down the sophisticated laboratory testing methods that are currently catching major brands red-handed, and you will learn how to spot a fake jar in less than 3 seconds just by looking at the fine print on the back label. And make sure you hang on until the very end, because the most shocking revelation involves a premium, medically praised honey variant that costs upwards of $40 a jar. Yet global sales figures prove that 90% of what's on the market is a total statistical impossibility. After this, you will know more than nearly every shopper in the country, and you'll never look at a grocery shelf the same way again. Before we start naming the specific brands you need to immediately throw into the trash, we need to build an educational foundation so you understand how the global food industry pulled off the perfect crime. Real honey is a miracle of nature. Bees collect nectar, evaporate the moisture through wing fanning, and enrich it with enzymes from their own bodies. It's supposed to be alive, packed with pollen, complex enzymes, and rich, distinct flavor profiles that change based on the specific flowers the bees visited. It's like a fine wine reflecting the soil and the season. Quality honey is thick, complex, and over time it naturally changes structure, forming solid crystals. That crystallization isn't a sign that the honey went bad. It's the ultimate proof that it's a living, unadulterated product. But the mainstream industrial food complex hates things that are alive and unpredictable. Large corporations want infinite shelf life, absolute uniformity, and rock-bottom production costs. To achieve this, they put real honey through a brutal process called ultrafiltration. They heat the honey to extreme temperatures, killing the beneficial enzymes, and then blast it through microscopic filters under intense pressure to strip out every single grain of pollen. Why would they intentionally remove the most nutritious part of the product? Because pollen is the cellular fingerprint of honey. Without pollen, a laboratory cannot trace where the honey came from. It is the ultimate cloaking device for bad actors, allowing them to mask the origin of cheap, legally dubious shipments from across the globe. Once the honey is stripped of its identity, the real corporate alchemy begins. The industry has mastered the art of stretching the product, using cheap industrial sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup, rice syrup, and cane syrup. Think of it like a shady street dealer cutting a pure product with cheap baking soda to maximize profit margins. The final result looks like honey, flows like honey, and sits on the shelf of Walmart or Target looking perfectly golden, but biochemically, it's nothing more than a processed sugar bomb. It's a ghost of a natural product, completely dead, engineered solely to satisfy a corporate spreadsheet while exploiting the consumer's desire to eat healthy. The industry relies on legal loopholes and vague labeling guidelines to keep you in the dark, counting on the fact that you will trust the imagery of a sunlit farm rather than question the mechanics of global supply chains. The viewer is an ally who has been systematically deceived by slick marketing, and it's time to look past the cartoon bees and see the industrial syrup for what it really is. Let's dive straight into the belly of the beast and break down the specific brands sitting on American shelves right now that deserve a permanent spot on your blacklist. We will start with the grocery staples you see every single day and work our way up to the absolute biggest, most shocking offenders in the industry. First up is Great Value Clover Honey, the ubiquitous house brand for Walmart. Millions of families buy this massive plastic jug because it costs pennies on the dollar, making it an incredibly tempting option for tight budgets. But the price tag is a massive red flag. Independent consumer advocacy organizations like the Clean Label Project have run extensive laboratory panels on budget supermarket honeys, and the data is grim. Testing frequently reveals that these bottom dollar syrups are heavily ultra-filtered to the point where zero traceable pollen remains. The label casually reads, "A blend of US and international honeys," which is corporate speak for we sourced the cheapest possible liquid sugar from whatever country was selling it off the back of a cargo ship, and we stripped out its biological identity so no regulatory agency can track it. When you taste it, there is no depth, no floral aroma, no complexity. It hits your mouth like straight hot corn syrup with a faint chemical aftertaste. You are paying for a dead, industrial substance under the illusion of buying a farm-fresh product. And the corporate mechanism relies entirely on the fact that budget-conscious shoppers won't look past the price tag to question how real bees could possibly produce honey that cheap. Moving up the grocery food chain, let's look at Target's house brand, Good and Gather Clover Honey. Target positions itself as the trendy, slightly elevated alternative to budget chains, making consumers feel a bit more virtuous about what they put in their shopping carts. But when you flip that signature clear bottle over, you are met with the exact same crushing lack of transparency. A blend of product from Argentina, Brazil, India, and Ukraine. The global honey market is currently awash in illicit syrup blending operations, and India and parts of Southeast Asia have been repeatedly flagged by international customs investigations for exporting honey cut with cheap rice and cane syrups. The sensory experience of Good and Gather honey gives the whole game away. Real honey has a distinct visceral mouthfeel, but consumers frequently note that this supermarket version is incredibly thin, watery, and slides right off a piece of toast like warm syrup. If you leave a bottle of real honey in your pantry for 6 months, it begins to turn solid and cloudy. If you leave a bottle of this highly processed corporate blend in your cabinet for 3 years, it stays identically transparent and runny. That isn't a miracle, it's a warning sign that the living enzymes have been utterly cooked out of existence. If you already feel like running to your pantry and checking your own shelf right now, hit that subscribe button, because the level of deception from the big national brands gets even harsher from here. Let's talk about the absolute heavyweight of the American baking aisle, Sue Bee Honey. Owned by the Sioux Honey Association, this brand has traded heavily on its wholesome Midwestern heritage since 1921. It feels as American as apple pie. Your parents bought it, your grandparents bought it, and it cloaks itself in the imagery of honest, hardworking American beekeepers. But look at their standard mass market bottles very closely. While they do sell a premium, domestic-only line, their high-volume, commercial-grade squeezy bears are frequently padded out with cheap foreign imports. In fact, Sue Bee was at the center of a massive class-action consumer litigation, alleging that their marketing deliberately misled consumers into thinking the product was purely domestic, pure, and natural, when in reality, it contained imported honey that had been ultra filtered to strip away all pollen and contamination markers. When a historic brand with over a century of consumer trust relies on legal loopholes and clever font placement to hide international blending, the heritage becomes a betrayal. The cost per ounce might look like a sweet deal compared to local raw varieties, but you are paying a premium for a brand name that acts as a glorious camouflage for a highly processed global commodity. Now let's look at the premium deception happening at high-end supermarkets like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Sprouts with brands like Little B Importers, or various store-branded organic options. Shifting to an organic label makes you feel entirely safe. You willingly pay double or triple the price of the Walmart jug because you think the USDA organic seal protects you from the industrial grinder. But here is the massive catch the industry doesn't want you to realize. Organic certification only regulates the farming practices, not the structural authenticity of the honey itself. A jar of honey can be certified organic while still being a highly processed, ultra-filtered blend of unnamed apiaries from 5 different developing nations. If the honey is stripped of its pollen to prevent tracking, that organic stamp is practically a marketing sticker. Consumers open these expensive jars expecting a rich floral experience only to find a perfectly uniform, completely characterless sweetness. It is the ultimate psychological scam. You walk out of a premium store feeling elite for spending $8 on a small jar of organic honey, but biologically you just bought a beautifully packaged version of the exact same dead syrups sitting in the discount aisle. Finally, we have to talk about the absolute king of luxury food scams, supermarket Manuka honey. Brands like Wetherspoon or random grocery store private label Manuka honeys promise miracle health benefits, throat-soothing enzymes, and medicinal properties that justify a staggering price tag of $30, $40, or even $60 for a tiny jar. It is marketed as the ultimate liquid gold from New Zealand. But let's do the basic mathematics that the global food industry prays you never calculate. The total annual production of genuine, high-grade Manuka honey in New Zealand is strictly limited by geography and weather to roughly 700 tons. Yet, international export and retail data shows that well over 10,000 tons of product labeled as Manuka honey are sold globally every single year. The math is completely broken. 6 times more Manuka honey is sold on store shelves than actually exists on the planet. This means nearly 80% of the premium Manuka jars sitting in American health food stores and major supermarket chains are completely fraudulent. They are either regular clover honey blended with a fraction of real Manuka or standard industrial honey artificially treated to mimic the dark color and medicinal taste. People buy this when they are sick, when they are vulnerable, and when they are trying to support their health. And they are being systematically fleeced at the cash register by corporate marketing departments that know exactly how rare the real product is, yet continue to flood the shelves with infinite inventory to keep the cash flowing. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the murky waters of corporate and absolute marketing lies. So let's talk about the actual real deal heroes of the honey aisle. These are the brands that are genuinely doing the work, keeping the bees healthy, maintaining total chemical transparency, and placing a product on American store shelves that is legally, biologically, and structurally authentic honey. The best part is you do not need to hunt down a mystical apiary in the woods to find them. You can grab these right on your next trip to Target, Costco, Walmart, or Whole Foods. Let's start with the most accessible, high-volume, mass-market option that actually respects its consumers, Nature Nate's 100% pure, raw, and unfiltered honey. You have definitely seen this bright orange label shaped like a classic flask in almost every major grocery chain across the United States. While it's a massive operation, Nature Nates protects its integrity through a rigorous, strict system called True Source Certification. This is an independent third party tracking protocol that tests the pollen footprint of every single batch to mathematically guarantee that the honey was legally and ethically harvested, with a clear chain of custody from the hive directly to the bottling plant. They explicitly do not cook their honey or blast it through industrial ultrafilters. They gently warm it just enough to strain out random bee wings and large wax chunks, leaving all the rich micronutrients, active natural enzymes, and microscopic pollen fully intact. When you pop open a bottle of Nature Nates, it doesn't just hit you with a flat wall of table sugar. You can physically taste a warm, complex, sun-drenched clover flavor. It costs around $7 to $9 for a standard bottle, which breaks down to an incredibly reasonable 40 to 50 cents per serving. The only real downside here is that because it is a high-volume blend of various certified North American apiaries, the flavor profile is engineered to be highly uniform, meaning you lose the unique wild variations of a single-season harvest. But for an everyday grocery store staple that you can trust implicitly, it is an absolute home run. RawHoneyGuide.com next up is the ultimate health conscious consumers who wants completely raw, uncompromised purity at an unbeatable value. YS EcoBee Farms. This brand was an absolute pioneer in the raw food movement, introducing mainstream American grocery buyers to what honey actually looks like before corporations ruin it. You can find their heavy glass jars stocked at health food stores, regional grocers, and major chains like Sprouts or Whole Foods. YS EcoBee Farms specializes in solid, creamed raw honey that is never heated past 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the exact ambient temperature inside a living, breathing beehive. Because they refuse to liquefy or heat process the product, the honey remains dense, opaque, spreadable, solid, packed with visible flecks of propolis and rich bee pollen. The sensory contrast between this and a standard plastic squeeze bear is absolute night and day. It has a deeply aromatic, earthy, deeply floral scent and a buttery, melt-on-your-tongue texture that makes standard liquid honey taste like dirty tap water. Price-wise, it is an absolute steal, oftentimes retailing for around $8 to $10 for a massive 22-ounce jar. Now, the obvious downside is practical convenience. You cannot easily drizzle this into a glass of iced tea or squeeze it out of a plastic bottle without a spoon, and it's intense. Robust flavor might be slightly overwhelming for kids who are used to standard commercial sugars. But if you want a medicinal-grade, enzyme-rich powerhouse for your morning toast, this is pure perfection. RawHoneyGuide.com if you want to take action and target your specific regional environment while getting 100% traceable purity, you need to look for local hive honey. This brilliant company has completely disrupted the corporate grocery game by partnering directly with dozens of independent, local American beekeepers all over the United States. Instead of dumping a bunch of foreign syrups into a massive industrial vat, local hive keeps their batches entirely separate based on geography. When you walk into a store, you will see bottles explicitly labeled Local Hive SoCal, NorCal, Northwest, Midwest, or Southeast. They provide full regional traceability, meaning the honey inside that bottle came exclusively from regional apiaries right in that specific territory. It is completely raw, unfiltered, and uniquely unpasteurized. The sensory experience of local hive is incredible because it allows you to actually taste the authentic local flora of your region, whether that's a sharp, refreshing hit of orange blossom in California or a deep, rich herbal wildflower profile in the Midwest. At around $9 to $10 for a 24-ounce bottle, you are paying a fraction more than the industrial store brands. But every single cent goes towards supporting actual local American beekeepers who are fighting to keep our domestic bee populations alive. www.target.com. You show two finally, for the absolute pinnacle of artisanal luxury, the undisputed king of American varietal honey is the Savannah Bee Company. Founded by an actual passionate beekeeper named Ted Dennard, this brand treats honey with the exact same prestige and reverence that a master winemaker reserves for a fine vintage. Available at Whole Foods, high-end boutiques, and specialty grocers, their absolute crown jewel is their pure, raw Tupelo honey, harvested during a frantic 2-week micro-season along the remote rivers of the southeastern United States. Because of the sheer purity of the white Tupelo blossom nectar collected by the bees, Savannah Bee Company's Tupelo honey has a highly unique chemical composition with an exceptionally high fructose to glucose ratio. This unique scientific trait means that authentic Tupelo honey will literally never crystallize. It stays permanently in a gorgeous, heavy, luminous liquid state completely naturally, without any corporate heat processing or filtration. It feels like absolute silk in your mouth, carrying a delicate, buttery, soft green citrus flavor that is entirely unmatched by any other substance on earth. Now, let's be entirely honest. This is a premium indulgence. A signature glass bottle will easily run you anywhere from $25 to $45, making it a luxury item reserved for special pairings rather than a heavy daily baking substitute. But when you buy from Savannah Bee, you are paying for an elite, unadulterated botanical masterpiece that proves exactly what real food is supposed to taste like when humans step back and let nature do the work. Now that you know exactly which brands are cutting their products with industrial syrup and which real producers are actually worth your hard-earned money, let's arm you with the ultimate shield against grocery store deception. When you are standing in the baking aisle at Walmart, Target, or Safeway, you need a foolproof strategy to analyze any bottle on the spot. So here are 6 concrete rules to identify real, high-quality honey all on your own. Rule number 1. Inspect the country of origin line on the very back of the label and explicitly look for the words "Product of the USA" or a single, clearly defined country like "Product of New Zealand," and immediately reject any jar that uses the highly deceptive, vague phrase, "a blend of domestic and international honeys," or names 4 different developing nations across 3 separate continents. Rule number 2. Always search the bottle for independent, verifiable stamps like the True Source Certified logo, which mathematically guarantees an audited, transparent chain of custody from the actual beehive directly to that retail bottle, ensuring the origin has not been chemically cloaked through ultrafiltration. Rule number 3. Scan the main label specifically for the words "raw" and "unfiltered," because standard commercial honey is heavily cooked at extreme temperatures to prevent crystallization, whereas raw honey preserves its natural cloudiness. Health-boosting particulate and native bee pollen. Rule number 4. Treat dirt cheap, impossible prices as an absolute indicator of a fraudulent product, remembering that if a massive container of honey at a discount supermarket costs less than 40 cents per ounce, it is economically and physically impossible for real beekeepers to manage hives, harvest nectar, bottle the liquid, transport the heavy cargo, and turn a profit at that retail price point. Rule number 5. Look closely at the physical state of the honey inside the jar, remembering that if a brand claims to be raw and natural, but stays completely clear, transparent, and watery in your dark, cool pantry for over a year without showing a single speck of solid white crystallization, it has almost certainly been stripped of its nutrients or heavily diluted with industrial rice or corn sweetener. Rule number 6. Whenever you have the choice, completely bypass the corporate grocery industrial complex and buy your jars directly from a vendor at your local neighborhood farmers market, or use the online honey locator tools provided by regional beekeeping associations to buy directly from lock apiaries. Because when you buy a jar from the actual person who owns the hives, the corporate marketing lies completely evaporate. To look at the big picture of this entire investigation, the modern consumer food industry is built on a massive, highly calculated bet that you will remain a completely passive shopper who buys products based entirely on cute cartoon mascots, rustic fonts, and cheap price tags rather than reading the fine print. Large corporate conglomerates intentionally exploit legal loopholes, weak regulatory definitions, and opaque international supply chains to quietly replace living, nutrient dense, natural superfoods with heavily processed, ultra filtered, dead sugar syrups to maximize their quarterly earnings. To break free from this system and stop being a helpless victim of predatory marketing, you only need to make one simple permanent shift in your daily thinking. Stop treating food as a cheap uniform, mass-produced factory commodity, and start treating it as a direct investment in your family's long-term physical health. The moment you decide that transparency, traceability, and structural authenticity are non-negotiable requirements for what goes into your grocery cart, the corporate food giants completely lose their power over your wallet. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this deep dive investigation into the hidden underbelly of the grocery store aisle. If this expose opened your eyes to the massive deception happening right on our supermarket shelves, if it made you deeply angry about what corporations are getting away with, or if it sent you running straight to your kitchen to check the back label of your own honey bottle, please hit that like button right now and share this video with a friend or family member who uses honey every single day in their tea or breakfast. Word of mouth is the absolute only way we can bypass the corporate media algorithms and force these massive food conglomerates to actually change their predatory practices. I want to hear directly from you down in the comments section. Which brand of honey is sitting in your kitchen pantry right now?